panel. But thank you all so much for joining us for this day. I know it's been a lot of Zoom hours, virtual hours for you all, but we appreciate you staying on till the end. This is our last panel for today. Tomorrow we have 3 other sessions from 12 to 3 o'clock Eastern time, so we hope you'll be able to join us for some of those as well. This is my favorite panel of the day. I'm a little biased in that sense. This is the Young Alumni panel. As you all know, my name is Harrinarine. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions at the law school. I'm also a proud class of 2017 graduate, and I'm joined here today by 6 other alum who are all class of 2017 graduates. You can say that I hijacked the panel because I did, and I brought together a lot of my friends for this panel, people who I went to Villanova Law with. I think what's so special about this panel, and you'll hear about each of these alum when they introduce themselves, is that they're all in different sectors of work, from public interest to private practice, in-house, across different practice areas as well. Geographically, they're diverse as well. So it just goes to show you that, at Villanova Law, you really do have the tools, you are equipped with the tools to graduate, to go off to pursue the things that you're most passionate about, the things that you want to do after you finish law school. So I'm going to turn it over to my fellow alum to introduce themselves. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So I'm going to start with you, Alyssa, of course. Lucky you, lucky number 1. And then we'll just go from there in order. Hopefully, Ash, you know what that means that you're next, right? Okay. And then Katie, and so on and so forth. Awesome. Thank you all.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa Amoroso. I'm currently an assistant district attorney in the Chester County DA's office. I, like Phil said, graduated in 2017. I did, my focus was criminal law from the beginning. I did a bunch of externships while in Villanova and then internships as well. And then I went to the Philadelphia district attorney's office where I was the last 4 years before I transitioned out to Chester County.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Phil, for putting this together. My name is Ashley Baxter. I work at Morgan Lewis in Philadelphia in Labor and Employment Group. 2017 grad as well, went to Bucknell for undergrad and took a year in between and worked as a legal assistant before jumping into law school. Little fun fact, given the time of year, I participated in Dean's Cup, which if you like basketball and you end up attending Villanova, I highly recommend trying out. I think it was my first year. We beat Temple. So that was a nice thing. So I'm glad to be part of this panel.
Ash, you have to tell them what Dean's Cup is.
Oh, sorry, give the background. So it's Temple, Villanova, Penn, and Drexel each put together a team of students, both male and female, as well as some professors. And it's kind of a round robin of basketball, and you get to take home the actual Dean's Cup and get bragging rights for that year. So even if you don't participate, I highly recommend going out and supporting your classmates.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Clarke. I am also a 2017 grad, as Phil said. I went to University of Maryland for undergrad, and I am back in the DC area working in Skadden's National Security Group, so kind of international corporate law. Fun fact about me, I was stuck in Europe when COVID hit and Trump closed the borders. So that was a good time.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley.
Alan, you're next. Don't worry.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Hopson. I am a Philly native through and through. I went to undergrad at St. Joe's in Philly, and then, as Phil said, graduated in 2017 from Nova. Right now, I'm the general counsel for a technology company in New Jersey called Miles Technologies, and I've been there since December of 2020. I don't really have any great fun facts about myself. I'm getting married this year, so it has been an interesting time transitioning into a role like general counsel and just trying to balance a wedding as well.
Hey guys, I'm Alan Conklin. I am an attorney at FanDuel, so you probably see a bunch of those advertisements going around these days. My fun fact is kind of the same as my graduation school. I saw on TikTok recently that the school Gonzaga, everyone's wondering, is it real? We don't know anyone from Gonzaga. Does it exist actually? And I went to Gonzaga, so that's my fun fact. You guys can now tell people that you know someone who went there, and I'm rooting for them. So hopefully you guys are too after this.
Hey, everyone. My name is Adam. I hard to beat Alan because that's a great fun fact and a great job at FanDuel. So it's hard to beat that. I went to Fordham for undergrad, Villanova, obviously 2017. I clerked. I went and started working at a firm. Then I clerked, and I just recently moved to in-house at Comcast. So in Philadelphia, but I live in Central Jersey. And my fun fact is probably that each person in my immediate family was born in a different country. Though I guess that's no longer true because I do have a 13-week-old son who was born in the same country as my wife. So I'm out there.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for those introductions. We want to get right into some questions, but I do want to encourage our attendees to feel comfortable putting any questions that they have into the Q&A box. You know the drill. Use the Q&A box, throw your questions in there. If you have questions for our alum as they're sort of talking about their experiences, talking about law school here, but also sort of postgraduate opportunities as well, definitely feel free to sort of, ask them whatever questions come to mind. I'll be helping to moderate that. So in essence, nothing's really off limits. We want to hear from you all. We want to be able to answer what your questions are. At this point in time, we know that you're sort of making a really difficult decision, one that we all made years ago to come to Nova, but you need to make the right decision for yourself. And so we want to be able to share any information that we can that might be helpful to you in deciding where it is you might ultimately end up going to law school. And I'll say I'm a little biased, of course, once again, as to Villanova, as an alum and as sort of working here right now. But yeah, feel free to throw in any questions you have into the chat box or the Q&A box, sorry. And we'll just get started here. You all did introductions. You talked about the different practice areas that you work in. Katie, you mentioned sort of national security, Ash doing labor and employment. Ashley, you're at like a tech startup. Alyssa doing public interest work, working as a DA. Alan in-house doing sports work as well. The question that I want to ask you all is, did you have particular ambitions when you started law school? Did you have a sort of goal in mind when you started? Was there a particular practice area that spoke to you that you came into law school thinking you wanted to do? And did you expect to be where you are right now when you were a 1L student? Alyssa, I know you mentioned sort of thinking criminal law, that was your focus. So you sort of like made maybe what your dream was happen. But for other people, I know that it changes over time, where you come in and you're not sure at all, and you sort of figure it out as you sort of progress. So definitely want to give you all the opportunity to share. If I can start with Katie, and then do Ashley, Ash, Alan, that'd be great.
Yeah, certainly, Phil. I would say I was kind of torn between two paths when I came to Villanova. I thought perhaps I wanted to do immigration law, given that I had sort of an international affairs background in undergrad. But I also was really interested in what corporate law would be. I mean, I just, you see law from a spectator's view and you think, oh, it's all courthouses and what you see in TV. So I didn't really understand what corporate law meant. As you can see, I ended up in one of those two paths. But I think you and I were both actually part of a lot of the pro bono and public interest related work at Villanova as well. So definitely had the chance to try out both before, making a decision or a plan.
Ash, you're next.
Two of us, it's throwing me off, sorry. So I actually went into law school thinking I wanted to do environmental law. I was an environmental studies and political science major in college, and really took a lot of those classes, really enjoyed the work, but kind of where I ended up working in the summers and the people and the groups that I was exposed to naturally kind of progressed towards labor and employment. I actually never took a labor and employment class in law school at all. So I think that just goes to show you that you can come in with one vision, but definitely be open to different possibilities. And even if the path that you take is one direction, there are other opportunities, from my experiences at the firm level, to get involved in pro bono and other activities that maybe touch on some of those, maybe touch on immigration or social security benefits, things if you want to kind of expand your horizon in a different way that may not be your main focus. There are definitely opportunities to do that. So I would definitely keep an open mind as you enter and take advantage of the opportunities that Villanova has.
Yeah. So when I came to Nova, I initially thought that I wanted to be a family law attorney. I have no idea why I thought that's what I wanted to be. I didn't know a family law attorney, but it just seemed so practical. I wanted to combine my love of helping people and helping families and also, being an attorney, which was my goal. I never took a family law class. So then I decided clearly it's not for me. It's not destined. And then I changed and really thought a lot about employment law. And I took a lot of the employment law classes at Villanova with Professor Giuliano, who was just amazing and really made me love the classes and that subject area even more. And then I made the transition to ultimately just pursue that and had that opportunity at the firms that I worked with after I graduated to be able to really get to hone that skill. Definitely, like the other Ashley said, you don't want to limit yourself while you're at Nova to just come in and think, oh, I want to be a criminal attorney or I want to be a labor and employment attorney. There's so many different classes and so many different opportunities to get involved, try different subject areas. So even though you come in with one idea, you'll probably change your mind several different times. And the perfect time to do that is in law school, where you have all the classes at your disposal.
Yeah, so I came in and I kind of wanted to do the sports path. I wanted to be like a sports agent, which I'm sure, maybe there are people out there that want to do that as well. I know that's, we have the sports law program at Nova, and that's one of the things that, really drew me in. But once I got there, as I realized that there's so much more opportunity than just within the sports world. I had other interests of just like broader business. There are a lot of business classes, and I think that's one of the most important things that Nova offers too, is that they really tie in like lawyers understanding business aspects of things, and they offer classes like accounting for lawyers and just trying to understand businesses as well. And I think that I really took to that too over the course. So, I went from wanting to just work in sports to just want to be like part of a big business. And it's funny because now I'm back at a sports company. But I spent some time, I worked for LG Electronics for 2 years, which is a pretty big company. And we really didn't touch much of sports there. So it was interesting when I left that company, people didn't really know like how big of an impact sports had on my life and that I wanted to work in that again. But I just think that like throughout your time there, things might change and you might have different, opinions on what you want to do or different interests. And I think it's good to kind of take different classes and feel out different things and just, Nova offers a variety of stuff. And then, even if you have like an interest like sports, you can open yourself up to different classes too. And then at the end of the day, you never know where your path's going to lead you back. So as long as you're growing and, challenging yourself, I think that you always get back to the path that you want. So
I don't want to leave you out, Adam. So I'm going to come to you, Adam, to sort of wrap this up. Alyssa, I'll give you the last word, of course, as somebody who came in thinking one thing and is still doing that thing that you're super passionate about.
Yes, thanks, Phil. I think I had a pretty similar idea coming into law school as Katie. I came in wanting to do immigration law. I'm from England. I've seen how immigration affects families. And so, that was always my overarching goal, but I had a definite interest in corporate law or commercial law. And I saw everyone thinking about, even before law school, thinking about lawyers as people going to courts. And I had no interest in going to a court at any point. And through law school, that kind of changed a bit. I always sort of had the immigration interest, but the corporate side became a little bit more prevalent. I ended up going to a firm that was almost primarily a litigation firm and doing some immigration law there, but the corporate side was still sort of more interesting to me. So when I got the chance to move in-house, I took it. And now I hope to not have to see a courtroom again, though Alyssa's helping me out a little bit because I have a pro bono case, which is going to trial on Tuesday.
So I would definitely say I was probably one of the few outliers, even in our class, that knew what I wanted to do and then stuck with it. I've wanted to do this since I was about 10 years old, and I knew going into law school exactly what I wanted to do. And I took every class and every opportunity, every internship, every externship to make that possible. But I think of the most people that do that. It's very, very rare. And I did enjoy taking classes that I probably would have never even tried had I not. I was one of those people that took accounting for lawyers. I tried to go into different things as well because I wanted to make sure I wasn't doing the wrong thing. And Villanova gave me a lot of opportunities to try out other things as well while I was there.
I want to come to Adam really quickly, just because I know that you are on the panel here and you did a JD MBA while you were a student at Nova. So as a little bit of a plug for joint degrees, but just the opportunity and the way in which it maybe enhanced your experience here and has benefited you since graduating. What led you to do that program? And yeah, what would you say are some of the benefits of having been a joint degree student here?
Yeah, it was a good experience for me. I had an idea that I wanted to do the joint program coming in. It was one of the reasons I started looking at Villanova, and most of the schools that I was interested in, I tried to look for ones that had that program. I think what was great about Villanova is you can do it in 3 years, so you're not extending your time in school. I didn't really want to spend more time in school. I've been here doing that enough. So, and I figured that I probably wasn't going to come back and get it once I left school. So that was a big push for me. It was relatively straightforward process to apply. I think that the people at both the law school and the business school really do a good job of helping you figure out when to apply, how to apply, and getting the application in. And then there were so many advantages of doing the program. You meet a lot of people who are outside of the law school who are working, because it's primarily a night program. So most of the people in the MBA program are full-time at local companies. And so you get to meet a lot of people from different areas, which are great connections to have, but also give you a little bit of a different thought process, which sometimes can be tough to get in law school. So it was nice to get that. And then since then, that MBA, one, it helped me get the job that I'm in now. It was a big differentiator between me and other candidates, but also what I learned in the program has helped me, especially sort of understanding the business aspects of Comcast. So I think that's probably something that I didn't get in undergrad because I wasn't a business major, and I wouldn't have gotten through purely law school classes. I think I had a general understanding of the business aspects through the law school classes, but a more deeper dive into specific industries came in the MBA program.
Katie and Alan, I want to come to you for this next question. I know that oftentimes individuals think about law school as sort of setting you up for a career path afterwards. We have graduates from Villanova that go off to different geographic areas, maybe because that's where they're from, maybe it's because that's just where they want to be. I know, Katie, you mentioned having gone to Maryland for undergrad and finding your way back to DC. For everybody who's on the call, Alan mentioned that he works at FanDuel. He's in New York City, lives in Manhattan, works there as well. So I wanted to just come to you both to just briefly sort of describe, Katie, if you want to start, what that process looked like for you, right? Because some of our admitted students may want to practice elsewhere afterwards. And if you could just talk a little bit about the support you might receive from Career Strategy, just sort of the mentorship that's available, but just about sort of how doable it is for people, because that might be what they want long-term, is to not maybe stay in the Philadelphia metropolitan area.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, starting when I was a 1L, when we started to talk about summer jobs for that first summer, as soon as I indicated to Career Services that I had an interest in potentially going back to DC, I did not my first summer, but I eventually did. They were wonderful about connecting me with alumni in the area just to kind of get an idea of what's out there for law students, because I think a lot of times like government jobs and things like that are kind of a mystery, to need to know kind of thing. So I would say, that was step one, connecting me with alumni. And then step two, when it came to actually interviewing for jobs, from what I recall, there were a number of DC jobs that were interviewing at Villanova through our OCI program, on-campus interviewing. And then there were also opportunities through a Philadelphia area law school, I guess like alliance, you could call it, and where it was basically an on-campus interview for all the students from Penn, Drexel, Villanova, Temple, all of that. And they would put a ton of DC employers together in one place so that we could interview at multiple sites throughout the day. That's how I ended up getting my summer associate job in DC, and then ultimately how I ended up where I am now. But I think, as I've lived here now for 5 years, I've really gotten to see the extent of the alumni network here, and how strong those connections are. And I think that that's one of the best things that career strategy does for you is connect you into that.
Yeah, and I didn't have as clear of a path with that, and I didn't know I wanted to live in New York when I was in school. I thought that maybe when I came out, I'm from the West Coast originally, so when I came out to the East Coast, I was like, I either want to live in Philly or New York, and I lived in Philly for a bit, and then ended up wanting to try the New York area. And I think that the reputation that Villanova has within this area, at least, and I mean, it's nationwide too, but it's really helped with the interview process and whatnot. It's like everyone kind of knows and respects Villanova as a good law school, just a good school, and just a good people that go there. And I think that kind of helps get in the door with a lot of these places for the interview process and whatnot. But during school, they also, career strategy also had a lot of opportunities that they would put up there in New York, and kind of just opened my eyes to what is out there, and these other big companies. That a lot of companies are based in New York, obviously, so there are a lot of in-house legal jobs that are there too, and that's something that I didn't really know existed before law school. Looking back, I probably should have known that, but I didn't have a traditional legal background. So career strategy just helps you kind of find the path, and it shows they have a lot of opportunities that they offer to you too. But I think that the reputations really helped me kind of get where I am, so it's been good.
I want to come to Ashley, Hobson, and Adam for this next question that relates to clerking. After you graduate, that's a path that some graduates take. That's a path that some people sort of run away from. I was the second category. Y'all were both the first. Ashley, you clerked immediately after graduating for a year. Adam, you worked, I think, was it a year? And then you clerked for a year, both in New Jersey. Share with me what led you to clerk, how you felt like you grew from that experience as a young lawyer, and why you would maybe encourage people to at least consider that as an option for themselves. Maybe if not after graduating, but maybe as even a little bit of a plug as sort of a judicial externship, if that's something they might want to consider as well. Ashley, I'll start with you and then Adam afterwards.
Sure. So I clerked for a trial court judge in New Jersey, and we are still friends to this day. I told him that I'd rather be his friend than ever appear in front of him because we just had such a great relationship. But I wanted to clerk because I heard so many good things. I feel like that was one of the major plugs that you got from Alumni, which was you should clerk, you should clerk, you should clerk. It'll improve your writing skills. It'll just help you see what life is like behind the bench. You'll be able to really get that firsthand knowledge from the person that if you end up going in a courtroom, if you end up being a litigator, you can get inside the mind of the person who makes those decisions, who will rule in favor or against your case. And it was an amazing experience. I would recommend it to anybody. Not only did it help to build my confidence in my writing, but I got to just watch lawyers practice every day. I thought that I wanted to be a litigator, and watching it, I realized, no, thank you. It's not really what I want to do. And I was able to see what good writing looks like, what bad writing looks like. How can I strengthen my argument? How can I be as persuasive as I need to be in this role? So I would definitely recommend clerking to anybody. It'll definitely help you on your job path. I know that when I was looking for jobs after my clerkship, it was such a highlight on my resume. Everyone wanted to ask me about it. Whether you have a state court clerkship or federal clerkship, it'll definitely take you far. It's, I think, an experience that employers find incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I decided to clerk because the firm that I was working for required a clerkship. I didn't necessarily think that I really wanted to clerk going into the sort of clerkship, but I got a job after law school, and I actually was supposed to clerk right after law school. I had immigration issues, which meant that clerkship fell through. My firm kept me on and continued to have me work there under the assumption that I would clerk the next year, which I did. I clerked in North Jersey also for a trial court judge. And I did not have the same experience as Ashley in terms of my friendship with the judge. We did not get along well at all. We still don't get along very well. However, it was a good experience in terms of what I learned. I learned quite a bit there. And like Ashley said, you learn so much about what is good writing, what is good lawyering, what is bad writing, and what's bad lawyering. Villanova has a really good reputation for its writing programs. And I think while I was in law school, I didn't really think about that or think that much of that until I was clerking and saw some of the writing that came in from some of the seasoned attorneys, and I was flabbergasted at how poor some of it was. So I think that I'd never really seen that before, and then I did learn a lot about how to deal with difficult situations in the courthouse. You are the judge's first line of defense. So you're getting calls every day, quite a few calls every day from lawyers trying to get their opinion through to the judge, trying to figure out what the judge wants. And you have to be able to think on your feet quickly, make decisions on what is allowed to be said to the judge, what shouldn't be said because it's an ex parte communication. And I think that is really valuable, a really valuable lesson. So I think it was a good experience. I don't know if I would do it again with that judge. Well, I definitely wouldn't do it again with that judge, but I would do it again, I think, with a different judge, yes.
So this next question actually is from the attendees. I guess I'll start going to some of the questions from the attendees, but this first one asks about law firm life at a big firm, sort of work-life balance. And I want to actually switch that around and actually start with Alyssa, because I think that sometimes people maybe have a misconception or sort of don't get a taste for or have a sense for maybe what work-life balance might look like when you're in the public interest realm, and sort of when you're working for a DA's office, expectations are really high. Hours worked can be really high as well. So Alyssa, if you want to just start by sharing about your experiences working for the Philly DA's office, now working obviously for Chester County, which is a suburb of Philly, what expectations might look like, the way in which you were able to find work-life balance. And then I'm going to come afterwards to you, Ash, Baxter, and Katie to describe what it's like working at Skadden and Morgan Lewis.
So my experience at Philadelphia was much of an associate at a large firm. And it was not something I think most of my class really expected was going to happen. I was pulling 12 to 13-hour days my first year regularly, and that didn't include the weekends. So in terms of that work-life balance, we were a really great, close class, and I'm very, very close with those people today, even though we're not in the same positions anymore and all in different places. So it's a great networking. But it was a very big adjustment and not something I think I really anticipated going into, that I was going to be working the same hours and not making quite the same money as some of my friends who were at firms at the time. That was a big part of why I switched out to Chester County. I have a much better work-life balance than I ever did in Philly, and that was what I was really looking for. I definitely experienced burnout by the end of 4 years of doing that regularly. It really did not change over the 4 years. So now I have a much more consistent schedule with a better caseload. And that was a very big step for me in my career to make that work-life balance a priority.
Ash, really quickly, just a caveat as well. Ash lateraled from one firm in Philadelphia, a large firm in Philly, to Morgan Lewis. So I guess for you, in essence, maybe striking a balance at both firms that you worked at and sort of how you were successful at doing so.
Sure. And just to give some background, because I don't think I was even aware of this going to law school, what the billable hour was. There are certain firms where you're required on a yearly basis to bill a certain amount of hours, and those hours are tracked in 6-minute increments. So you do start to look at your life a little bit differently. But I will say, everyone that you're working with is going through the same thing. So kind of going along with what Alyssa was saying, the expectations are equal across the board. So, using your friends and your colleagues to kind of get an understanding of the expectations, how to balance that. I think work-life balance is, some people may say it doesn't really exist, and it's kind of you setting up your life in a way that you feel like you're giving enough to your work, but also to your family and to your personal life. I think it's something that I'm still working on a daily basis, especially, with the pandemic and working from home. There was kind of that blur, as I'm sure everyone, regardless of profession across the country, experienced. So getting used to that. But in terms of the transition, I was at another firm in Philadelphia and transitioned to Morgan Lewis. The expectations for billable hours definitely increased, but I think from my experience at the first firm, getting that under my belt, I was able to transition a little bit easier. But I do rely on my colleagues to kind of, when we need to step away, we try to step away. But as Alyssa said, I think even people that don't work at traditional big firms, I have plenty of friends that work just as many hours as I do. So it's the distinction sometimes I think is irrelevant.
Yeah, I have to agree with Ashley. I would say my work-life balance has really fluctuated over the last few years between, the pandemic, or, for example, like who's in the group, who's moving on to other things. People move on to other jobs all the time. I've stayed at the same place for 5 years, but I would say among our class, that's pretty uncommon. So yeah, I think we're getting back to a better work-life balance now that there are things to do other than sit in your apartment or house all day. But I definitely was not very good at setting those boundaries for a bit. I think it also really, work-life balance, maybe it's not necessarily determined by whether you're at a firm or whether you're in the DA's office or whatever. I think it might be the type of law that you're practicing. For example, I work on 15 different matters a day. And so even though, I might only bill 8 hours that day, it's a lot of like mental gymnastics going between things, and you lose a lot of time skipping between things. Whereas, maybe someone else is working on the same litigation case or deal all day. And sometimes it's just easier to power through. I find it easier to power through when I'm working on one thing. So I think you kind of just get used to the billable hour. As Ashley said, it becomes routine. But my experience at least has been that, if you're a responsible individual, which I'm sure you all are, you're going to law school, you're smart, you'll get leeway to do the things that you need to do in your personal life and you want to do. If you're not reliable, then people will be less likely to, give you that flexibility. And I think, post-COVID, that's really key, is flexibility.
The next question deals with working in-house. And so we have 3 people here that are doing so. Alan, you mentioned beforehand you went from LG, now obviously working at FanDuel. Ash, you mentioned being general counsel, right, at a legal startup, or a tech startup, sorry. And then Adam, you were working in-house at Comcast, but prior you were at a firm. Ashley, you were at a firm prior as well. I know, Alan, you started right out of law school at a firm too. So the question is, could you speak to how one might prepare for a general or associate counsel, type position working in-house? Are there certain areas that someone should be focusing on in particular if they want to go in-house? I know that that's more of a broad question and it can sort of go in different ways, but maybe for yourself, maybe what was your thought process in terms of wanting to go in-house, and how did you prepare for that? How would you suggest somebody preparing for that? Alan, if you want to start, and then we can do Ashley and Adam.
Yeah, I think my thought process for going in-house was at my first firm, I'd always wanted to, I would get people or clients would come in and they'd ask questions here and there, and, we'd always be there to help them and whatnot. But after a year or so, I was like, I want to be part of the process from the beginning, hopefully, with a lot of these people. And it's like, maybe if we can talk through them and like help build principles and let them know, like, certain risks that there are up front, then, we could kind of eliminate certain things that do come up during, the process of, why they're coming to lawyers, because there's an issue that comes up. And it's like, I wanted to be more part of the business. And I think that in-house is being able to helping me provide that role and being a trusted advisor to the business teams, which is something that's interesting to me, and just, helping them kind of operate day to day with, reduced risk, basically. And it doesn't sound as exciting when I say that, but it is kind of fun, like dealing with business people, and I think they're a little different than lawyers in themselves, but working with them and then like seeing finished products and seeing stuff out in the real world is kind of cool to say that you know, put your stamp on it basically. I think that some of the classes that help me in my role day to day are basically, you know, one thing that I really liked was the contract drafting classes that we had at Nova. I think those were a good way to break up the day-to-day like caseload that we'd have, you know, the traditional classes where you're reading cases and going over them. I think the contract drafting kind of gives you more a substantive view of like what you're actually putting on paper and what the contracts are and what, you know, the business people are trying to get down. And that was really helpful to me. And also just, it was a good way to network and like talk with my friends. And too, you know, it's like you got to talk through issues that are different than reading cases. So I think that's one class that was helpful and where I am now.
I will actually piggyback off of what Alan said. I wanted to go in-house for that exact same reason. I was so tired of seeing cases, at least from an employment standpoint, where so many bad decisions were made, and that's why we ended up with a lawsuit. And I really wanted to be on the front end of that. How can I stop companies? How can I stop my company from making these bad decisions that ultimately land us in litigation? So I had that exact same goal. And it is interesting. Going in-house, you really are dealing with different people. You are dealing with business people. You're more of a business partner than you are almost an attorney. Obviously, you have to give legal advice, but you have to be able to think like a business person as well. And there are definitely so many classes at Villanova that I thought were helpful. If you take a negotiations class, I thought that's invaluable to be able to realize that you're not going to win everything and what's going to be your high, what's going to be your low, what are you comfortable with walking away with. So definitely classes like that were helpful. Contracts in general, contract drafting. And I think what prepared me for going in-house while I was at a law firm was just being able to communicate and just being able to feel comfortable voicing my opinions. Had I gone straight to in-house from law school, I don't think that I would have been able to have the voice that I do today. So there are definitely there's a lot of networking opportunities that happen at your law firm. I still reach out to people that I used to work with for some of the answers that I can't find on my own just because they've been in practice longer. So definitely there are a lot of classes at Villanova. And if you decide to go to a law firm before you end up going in-house, definitely keep those resources. I would definitely say that.
Yeah, I think Alan and Ashley both. I agree with pretty much everything that they said. I wanted to go in-house partly because we kind of talked about the work-life balance, and that was one of the moves I wanted to make for that reason. I was getting a little bit tired of living my life in the 6-minute increments and trying to hit billable hours. I also do have a few other jobs. I coach youth soccer. I teach. I'm an adjunct professor for undergrad, and hopefully in the spring at Villanova for law school. And I found those interesting. I enjoyed doing them, but I didn't really have the time to do that with also working the 12 to 16-hour days. So it was a little bit easier to do that in-house. I didn't have my firm that I was working at wasn't really a great preparation necessarily for making that move in-house. I had to do a little bit of that on my own. I ended up building a little bit of a book of business myself at my firm. I got a little lucky where I found a client who I helped them start to take companies from private to public. And doing some of the mergers and acquisitions for some of those companies as well, which gave me a little bit more of the transactional aspect, which I could take then to Comcast and say, hey, I have an MBA, I have some experience negotiating, I have some experience doing this. I might be a good fit for this job. And that worked. But I think that the classes at Villanova were helpful. Business organizations is, I think I use concepts from that every day. Contracts too, and contract drafting. Some of the other people that I work with who didn't go to Villanova had never taken a class on actually drafting. It was all case law type stuff. which hasn't necessarily held them back, but it does give me a little bit more confidence to be able to do some of that outside. I've had a little bit more experience with it. So I think that that's been a big help, some of those classes.
Okay, we're going to do a little bit of rapid fire here since I know that we have about 20 minutes left and there are questions that we want to get through. This next question is a bit of a fun one. It says, what were your favorite parts or must-dos of Nova campus life? So I guess extracurriculars, involvements on campus. I'm going to come to each of you really quickly. So spit out like the one or two, whatever things that come to mind that were your favorite or must-dos of Novus's campus life. Alyssa.
I think the SBA activities, Phil was our president at the time, so I guess I'm partial, but they did regular things to keep us, happy and fed, and he threw great events. And so we had a barrister's ball. We had a lot of great things that made law school, though difficult, a lot of fun.
Katie.
Well, Alyssa took my first one, but I would say on a more serious note, doing a clinic. I would say clinics are hands down some of the best things that Villanova offers and gives you the chance to not just read case law every day and to practice what you're learning while supervised, of course.
Ashley, Baxter.
Yeah, I was going to say clinics as well. I was in the civil justice clinic. There's a bunch of clinics. I think there may be more now than there were when we were there. Just a great opportunity for hands-on experience and great to, spin into positives for interviews. So highly recommend.
Al.
Fun-wise, I'd say like Red Mass or other events like that. And just kind of one of my favorite things about Nova is like the community that it is and the people that are there. And it's nice to still be able to talk to a lot of those people. And I don't know if that's the same for other schools, but I'm friends with all of you guys. So that's kind of nice to have that relationship. And then, school-wise, I think going to symposiums is very helpful for me to just kind of not only network, which I don't really like to do that often, but like to see other roles that are out there. And then there are a lot of people that come to the school during like the lunch. Clubs will put on like lunch meetings where people come in and speak. And I think those are kind of cool to go to, even if you don't know if you're interested in them. It's kind of good and opens your eyes to new things.
Adam, and then Ashley Hopson.
I think anything that has free food, I was there. But also, I think also just spending time on campus with people. We all are friends, and I think that's partly because we just spend so much time together on campus. So even if there's not a specific event, just being around and getting to hang out and talk to people.
Yeah, I think for a non-school related activity, I guess Barrister's Ball was so much fun. It was so nice to be able to see people not look stressed out and just actually put regular clothes on and look like real people. So Barristers was a lot of fun. And I loved Trial Team. We weren't that successful, but it was just a lot of fun being able to just, have that mock trial kind of feel.
Awesome. Okay. So this next question relates to mentorship. Maybe how you received it as a student and how maybe now you give it in response. Ash Baxter, I'm coming to you for this one as sort of an alum and the ways in which you've been involved with our young alumni group, Novus. And then Alyssa, I'll come to you a little bit just to share about maybe ways in which alum maybe give back in other ways. I know that sometimes alum will come back to assist with what Ashley Hobson just mentioned, trial team stuff, moot court stuff, primals, things like that. But we'll start with you, Ash.
So I'm involved along with Phil in Novus, which is the young alumni group. So just kind of a resource for young alumni. If you need to bounce ideas, it's a good platform to maybe if there's job postings at your firm to kind of use that network. They also put on different events throughout the year, usually a happy hour combined with maybe some sort of service component, just a way to kind of connect with people around your class year. Another thing that the law school does that I've been on both sides of is when you're a 1L, you're set up for a mock interview through Career Services. So you're paired with a Villanova alumni and you just kind of do a mock interview to go through that experience. And I've also done that as an alumni as well. So kind of giving back and connecting with current students is just a nice way to share in that experience as well.
In terms of mentorship, I've been really very lucky over the past few years. How I got my job was through older alumni that helped me prepare for interviews similar to the mock interview, but for the actual interviews for the DA's office. A lot of my coworkers come back and all teach. There's 4 of them actually at the trial team right now at Villanova. And I actually work at this DA's office now with 4 younger DAs that actually all came up through Villanova as well. So the network and the mentorship that I've had in both places has been wonderful. And honestly, even the deans, one of the deans invited me to her house, for holidays. We used to go over there. She wrote all of my recommendation letters, and she was fantastic. Even through New York and different states, she reached out to any connection she had, and I will be forever grateful for that mentorship over the years.
A couple quick questions I want to try to address before we get back to the Q&A. There's a question here about mental health resources, so I'll just put a plug in. We have a Mental Student Health Alliance at the law school. It's a newer organization, but it's there to promote events, but also opportunities for students to connect with one another, have a bit of a de-stressor, a way to sort of get away from what law school may add to your plate. Obviously, lots of reading, lots of studying, lots of stress that may come with that. Of course, that might relate to practice as well, but we partner with Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers, which is available to students, also available to lawyers for them to sort of have resources that they can tap into if you feel like you're struggling or if you feel like you're not able to maybe balance things mentally the way that you need to be. We also have a Director of Student Affairs on campus, Nancy, who's going to be speaking at one of our events tomorrow online. And Nancy is also a certified counselor, is there to assist you. But I will just say more than anything that the people who work at the law school, the staff members, we all sort of feel very comfortable and are more than willing to assist law school students at any time. If you'd like somebody to talk to, if you have somebody that you'd like to share with, or if you feel like you're struggling and you want to confide in someone. Alyssa, do you have something to say about that?
Sorry. I was just going to say, always through school too. I didn't realize I raised my hand. I'm sorry. You guys brought in like all the stress puppies. You guys did all the relaxation things throughout finals. You guys really did a lot to make sure that during the worst, time studying, that was a priority.
I completely forgot about that, but we did. I think we had cats, goats, dogs, whatever.
Don't forget midnight.
I will say too. Yeah. I do feel like the Lawyers Concerned for Lawyers thing, that like the lady that came in and spoke to us our first year, I feel like everyone still remembered that. And like, no, I didn't realize that was such an issue. So it really, we still talk about like that moment, me and my friends. So, yeah. It's always, good to know that that's a problem and that there's help available.
Yeah, it's real. And I know that comment said that, it's real. It's a growing concern for a lot of law students and lawyers. So there are resources available here at the law school. But then, of course, generally speaking, when you graduate, there are larger groups that advocate and assist people with those concerns if they have them, or if they need assistance. Katie, coming to you for this quick question. What's typical homework load look like for a law school student every night, maybe first year? Then you can talk about how maybe it transitions and gets a little bit better over time, but maybe how many hours, how many pages, things like that. I'll just come to you for this one.
Oh man, you're throwing something 7 years ago, Phil. I think, the first year is definitely the most intense, and it's the most serious year. Your first year is most important, I would say, in terms of grades and the like. So that first year, especially when you're just learning how to read cases and figuring out what you need to find within those cases, I would say it's several hours of homework every night. But as everyone has said here, everyone's in the same boat. So you have those resources and people to lean on and ask questions of. Villanova's, like everyone has said, it's really a community, and there isn't this like cutthroat attitude. People are really willing to help each other. And a lot of those hours you spend with your friends, reading and talking and trying to understand what you're doing. So it's not that bad. Pages wise, I don't even remember how many pages, but it was a lot.
Money to remember. Definitely like a couple hundred sometimes, maybe for a class.
Phil, I remember with you the first night before school even started, we were like in there till really late. And then we got guidance from people that 2Ls and 3Ls, and they're like, you guys need to focus, like, go home.
You need to go
what do you
home.
do?
Yeah. But it does
You
get
gotta
better.
get the feel for it.
As Phil said, it changes. After that first year, you're taking a lot of different classes. Like everyone has mentioned here, you're taking more practical classes about drafting, and you're not just reading cases for hours upon hours every night.
Definitely. I'll answer this question really quickly. It talks about paid internships or paid legal work. So you can, maybe it's not advised your first year, but you can do work study. You can be a research assistant. You can be a TA for a professor, for a class. If you do well in that class, you can also look for work experience at local firms. There are some firms. I worked at an immigration firm and a public interest firm my second and my third year of law school. So there will be opportunities if you need to work to support yourself, but also if you want to work to also have something to add to your resume. Paid internships. So the externship program here is unpaid. And our clinics, of course, are unpaid as well. There have been talks about the way in which that might change in the future. Nothing is sort of set in stone yet. But just to keep in mind that work experience, something that you can do, you can actually have some paid legal work, whether it's through the school, work study, or external as well. Another rapid fire question. It seems cliche, but why did you all choose Nova? What were your deciding factors? What comes to mind? Ashley Hopson.
I loved the campus, honestly. I loved that Villanova was such a big school, but still kind of had that small school feel, I guess, and just being right outside of the city. I just really liked it. My mom also said I should just go there, so that really made it easy.
Alyssa.
Actually, the biggest factor for me was the scholarship retention rate for Villanova. I had a lot of friends in New York and other cities, and for them, if you were not in the top 10% of the class, you lost your scholarship. Villanova does not do that. You have to maintain, I think it's a 3.0 GPA, and you get to maintain that throughout the entirety of your 3 years there. And that, for me, was one of the biggest factors.
Adam.
Yeah, actually, the scholarship retention rate was a huge one for me too. But also, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, Phil, but the school was really helpful with me with scholarships. So they gave me an initial scholarship, and I came back and said, "Hey, I really want to come here, but I need a little bit more." And they worked with me on a lot of that stuff. So that was really helpful. I'd never been to Philadelphia before, and so I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely encourage all of our admitted students here. I know that's a big financial commitment and decision to make. And so, as Adam mentioned, if you have questions about the financial aid process, if you have questions about how need-based aid works, if you have questions about loans and how that works as well, feel free to contact me. Feel free to contact our office. Of course, financial aid is available as well to assist you with navigating that too. Katie.
For me, it was probably the experiential learning opportunities that drew me in. I really loved all of the judicial externships that were offered, clinics, as I said, all of that. I wanted to do real world things in law school.
Alan.
Yeah, I thought that it gives you a good opportunity to work in New York and Philadelphia, actually. Like, I didn't know I was going to end up in New York, but I knew I had some friends from undergrad that ended up all working in New York, and I didn't know if that was going to be the same reputation or same access to that market. But it has been, and it's just being able to work in either Philadelphia or in New York. Nova's really well respected, and I think that's kind of why I wanted to go there. Wanted to live in one of those two cities, so I've got to live in both.
Ash.
Yeah, I'm from the area, so I wanted to stay in Philadelphia, so I kind of limited myself in terms of schools from that. But honestly, if you have the opportunity, I highly recommend visiting the campus, if it's allowed, Phil, with COVID. I'm a big environment person, and I loved the building, honestly. I loved the library. Like Adam says, you spend a lot of time, if you get there, there's a thing called the Commons, which is, big windows. That stuff I think really is important given kind of the stress that can occur in law school. So I definitely recommend visiting because that may sway you.
Awesome. Thank you all for that. A couple of other really fine-tuned questions that we'll get through here, and we'll be done in a few minutes, everybody, I promise. Next question here, and this is sort of open. If one of you wants to answer it, feel free. It says, were there specific things that were important to do in law school to be competitive for certain types of internships or post-grad jobs? For instance, was participating in a certain clinic better for working in the DA's office, or is doing law review essential for Big Law? I'll answer the second part of that question. Ash was on the Sports Law Journal. She was on A Journal, not the Law Review. I was on Environmental Law Journal. So you can be on a journal or not a journal and still end up in Big Law. Of course, Ash is a testament to that. Alyssa was on Trial Team. Obviously, Ashley Hobson spoke about that as well. But do you all feel as though you have to do certain things to be competitive for certain internships or positions? Or do you feel as though sort of exploring different things, playing the field, just getting things under your belt might be the best way to do it? Does anybody feel strongly about wanting to answer?
I can say, at least, as someone on the other side now doing interviews, I don't really care what someone did in law school. I care that they did something and that they were passionate about something. But I think most people who are hiring probably understand that people go to law school not knowing what they necessarily want to do. And as long as you're showing that you are interested in something and you're dedicated to something, and you studied, I think it's more of a personality thing. And at least on this side.
I agree with that as well. I think as long as you have, kind of your story to tell, and whatever that story is can be unique to you. I don't think there were people say you need to be on a journal, you need to do mock trial, but I think as long as you've kind of crafted your own path and you're able to share that in an interview, I think you'll do just as well as anyone else.
This next question says, how can you practice networking with your peers during law school and build meaningful relationships? Also, what kind of questions are most helpful to ask alumni in networking in searching for potential job opportunities? So what sorts of questions would maybe you want a current student to be asking you to sort of learn about opportunities? And also, how do you practice networking with current students as a law student?
I think if you're trying to connect and network with somebody, who's who's been out of law school, like we have for about 5 years or so, or anyone who's practicing, if you just ask, how did you get to where you are? Everyone loves that question because everyone loves talking about themselves. So that's always a great way to just at least get the background so then you can know what it is that you need to do as well. And as far as networking with your classmates, just be an approachable person. I think we're all on this panel today because we're approachable people, and just don't try to be so competitive that you just alienate your peers, because one day when you're looking for jobs, you're definitely going to need your peers.
I was going to say, don't be a jerk in law school. That's basically it, because we're all pretty good friends. We're all able to talk to each other. I'm on the phone with someone from law school almost every day asking questions. And hopefully I wasn't a jerk, because otherwise they wouldn't answer my questions.
And I remember people said that in school too. It's like, just be a good person. And, you never know who you're going to see down the line. And it's like, everyone I've dealt with at school has been great. And I still, would not want to go to somebody down the line. So it's like that those words stay true. And I think you guys or Career Strategy offers like networking events too, where we went to those at night, and it was pretty helpful to just kind of, they had some alums there that were helpful in asking questions and like telling you what they're looking for too in certain things. But I think just stay true to yourself and be genuine in those conversations. Actually, like, care about what, they want, what you're asking when you're asking people questions at networking events.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've sort of hit the nail on the head a few times talking about sort of the way in which we've interacted with one another as alumni now, but as, former current students together as sort of, peers. And I will just throw out a couple of really quick stories. Last fall, I was in New York for an LSAC convention. I know that our admitted students know what that is, LSAC. And we know from years ago that, that they host forums. And in New York City, I had a couple nights there, and then I reached out to Alan and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to be here, and stayed the night with Alan in the apartment he's in right now, right?
Stayed right here.
Right there. And then next weekend, I'm seeing Alyssa and Ashley because they're coming back to the law school for an employer fair, and we're going out to dinner afterwards, right? So you are going to be making genuine relationships and friendships with people when you come to Villanova. You are going to be putting down, I think, roots and planting seeds. And even if you end up in different geographic areas, you're still going to be very close to people that you graduated with. Katie, you're about to sort of do something special, tie the knot, right?
I was going to say my maid of honor is my law school best friend. I was her maid of honor. Yeah.
So you really will have types of connections and relationships with one another. They say that on the first day. They sort of talk about how lovey-dovey it may end up being for you with your peers, and You laugh, you sort of smile. We all are sort of smiling right now because we know it's true. What they said is true in essence. And we're all we're about to plan our 5-year reunion, which is crazy to think that we're 5 years out, but we are still so much in connection with each other and really had such a great experience here that now all these years after, we still, think of each other and speak about each other so highly. Last question.
See each other at all the weddings.
Literally. Last question. We're at 6 o'clock, so I want to end soon, but when you think about Villanova law, what's a word or a thought that comes to mind? Sort of like a parting word or thought about the law school for those that are admitted, thinking about the school, trying to decide where to go. What comes to mind when you think about your time here as a student? Ash, Baxter?
It's very sad. I think family, because I really feel like you have your professional network, your personal network. I think the job I have now, I reached out to a classmate of ours, Sean, and said, hey, there's a posting. How do you like the job? I think that was my ticket in the door to, get that first interview. So I really think, people look out for each other, which is nice.
Katie.
I don't want to copy, but I was going to say community. I think that you have a lot of support, and no matter what you're going through in law school, personal or school or whatever, you have a lot of people to rely on.
Adam.
I'm going to say home. We spent so much time there. I've lived in a lot of different places, but I felt like Villanova was one of the places where I felt most at home for a while.
Ashley Hobson.
I would say strong academics. You're going to get such a great foundation if you choose Villanova as your home. You'll take some of the lessons that you've learned in your class, obviously, as Adam and I mentioned too, and even Alan, that you'll use some of these things, especially like your contracts class going forward. So you'll be able to use so many practical lessons. So definitely strong academics for sure.
Al?
I would say friendly, because it's not just, our friends and people that are in the class, but also the teachers and everything too. And I'm not someone who would really go to teachers that often for advice and stuff, but they're always asking you questions and helping you out outside the classroom. And they're always walking around the commons, and you build relationships, and everyone is very friendly. So that's something that stood out to me.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
I would probably say support. Between just the people on this call, but also from the staff, the administration. Anytime you run into an issue, whether it be with school or something else going on, there's always someone there that cares.
So we're at the end of the panel. I want to thank all of our panelists for joining, for taking some time out of their busy schedules to speak today. It was so great seeing you all. I'm putting my email address into the chat box. That way, moving forward, if any of our admitted students has questions for any of the panelists, email me. I can connect you to them. That way you can sort of, have additional conversations, ask them questions about their past. But thank you all so much for joining. Thank you all so much. Hopefully I'll get to see a lot of you sometime soon, sooner than the reunion coming up in May. But of course, it's so great seeing you all and connecting. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.